So if you'll start by introducing yourself, please.
Yeah, my name is Welgona Ouko. I'm a dairy farmer and chairperson of secondary farmers, where we have we collect milk from farmers, and we have a milk collection center where we make yogurt, mala, and sell fresh milk as well. Our main target there is just to build the farmers, especially those ones who cannot produce milk. They help us by planting the napier grass for feeding the animals and any other product which can help us to boost the standard of keeping the animals.
Welcome back to Africa Science Focus, the science and development show from SciDevNet. I'm Ogichie Kenyao. That was Falgona Achola Ouko, a dairy farmer and cooperative chairperson in Yahera, Western Kenya. We spoke to her about the difficulties she and other farmers in her area have experienced as a result of climate change. Across sub-Saharan Africa, her experience is becoming more common. Changing climate conditions are making rainfall harder to predict, and the impact goes beyond individual farms. According to the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World 2025 report, between 638 and 720 million people globally faced hunger in 2024. And while some regions are improving, food insecurity continues to rise in parts of Africa, driven in part by climate variability and other shocks. Climate-smart agriculture has been widely promoted as the solution to the kind of climate stress Falgona describes. Yet, despite years of research, advisory programs, and climate finance commitments, many farming systems are still struggling. In this episode, we look at how one project, iSpark, is trying to close the gap between the science of climate-smart agriculture and the decisions farmers, policymakers, and investors actually make. iSpark is led by the International Center for Tropical Agriculture and brings together researchers from the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, the University of Leeds, Kenya's National Agricultural Research Organization, and the iShamba Advisory Platform. We begin on the farm itself. Robert Uchumukich is a smallholder farmer in Seme Sub-County, Kisumu County, in the area where iSpark is working. He has seen the rainfall pattern in his area change over the course of his lifetime.
Sometimes it rains, and when it rains too much, then it washes more soil, and then you have the springs drying up and the rivers getting smaller and smaller.
You talked about erratic rainfall patterns. Was it always the case in your area that you had erratic rainfall patterns, or have the patterns changed in recent years?
The pattern has actually changed in the recent years, and it keep on changing at the same time. Soil erosion is going on, so that you'll find trees falling and such like things. Yeah.
From your understanding, why have the patterns changed?
The patterns changed because I hear over the radios that a lot of carbon is being emitted in the air, so the climatic conditions get hot, and then maybe that affects the pattern of air movement in the region.
You suspect it might be climate change that is causing or leading to these erratic rainfall patterns?
Exactly that.
Could I just get you to add on, what impact is this having on soil conditions as well?
Now, it has soil conditions because the soil gets very hard, and people do not respond to the soil erosion. They don't respond to the soil erosion. So the soil will run from the topsoil will go away. Then we come to subsoil. Subsoil will go away and we will have rocks. So we'll have nowhere to farm.
So the soil erosion going on, is that because perhaps you're getting sort of stronger rainfall, or like more impactful rainfall than you used to before, or why is this soil erosion now being an issue?
For example, you might find rain in 1 hour. The rain has pounded the ground so hard and the water flows very fast, that washing away the soil in very fast time.
So you're getting more intense rainfall now in a shorter period than you used to in the past?
Yes, exactly that.
Robert's experience of heavier, shorter bursts of rain is echoed by farmers across the region, including Falgona, who has had to invest significantly to keep her farm going.
When I got married to that place, in fact, we didn't have any problem. We had fixed dates for planting, for harvesting, and replanting, and even the mixed plants like beans and groundnuts. We had fixed time. When you are planting, when you will harvest, and everything was very much in order. But this change of climate has really affected the plantation.
So basically, rainfall patterns have changed in recent years.
It has changed a lot.
How has that affected you?
Well, it was affecting me very badly before I had my water. But now that I have that water, at least the piece of land around my home is comfortable, because I bought a pump which is flushing water to all parts of the garden. But other areas outside, even the farmers around me, people are so much discouraged by planting, because you spend a lot of money on planting, and when it comes to harvesting, you get almost nothing. So it has really affected the area. Like mine took almost 2M to dig that one.
2 million Kenya shillings, which I would say is about probably 19 or 19,000 US dollars.
Maybe around that. So after digging this one, in fact, because of the challenge of shortage of water around the area, it is a blessing to the area, because people are coming to get water from my place, though they are paying, but it is not as much. It is as well as helping the community to get some relief of the water shortage.
Mama Falgona, have you had any changes in your soil conditions in recent years?
Not much, because I use the animal waste to put on the land, so that one is not affected very much. But at least around the area, the changes are there, because the same soil being used every now and again, and in our area we have shortage of land also. It's the same piece of land which is supposed to be is being dug every now and again during the short and the long rains. So they are overused. Unless you just take care of the land, it doesn't become very productive.
So would you say that has an impact on the soil as well?
Yeah, it does. It does.
So how has it affected your piece of land and the pieces of your neighbors, the other farmers in the area? How has this, what you describe as overuse of the land, affected your production?
Yeah, production is affected unless you use plenty of manure. The production is really reduced, because the usage of land every now and again, unless you add manure, the production must drop.
Both Robert and Falgona have found partial answers on their own. A trench here, a borehole there. But those are individual responses to a systemic problem, one that ISPAC is working to address at scale. A central part of the project is strengthening the advisory services that reach farmers like Robert and Falgona with practical, science-based guidance. In Kenya, the iShamba team works directly with iShamba, a platform that delivers farming advice to farmers through their mobile phones, from weather forecasts to soil and crop management. Lilian Kirwa is iShamba's product manager. She told us what the iShamba partnership has changed about the advice that farmers receive.
So we have a platform and we have a shortcode SMS number that farmers SMS the word join. And when they SMS the word join, they get an automated message asking them of their location, what they are farming, their name, the type of phone they have. And this is just for us to have their profile so that all the information we send to them are based on their profile. They are not just random messages. So back to the question of how we do that, we leverage the SMS platform. So we send out very simple, easy to understand messages to the farmer using the SMS platform. Aside from that platform, we have a call center where farmers can call in to ask questions. So the call center is staffed with agronomists, animal experts, and other experts that are there to support the farmer. Aside from that, we have a WhatsApp group for farmers. So this platform acts as a platform where there's peer-to-peer learning. Farmers exchange ideas. They are able to know what the other one is doing, and it promotes community learning. So in the soil health information, we try to push soil testing, importance of doing a soil test, importance of adding organic manure to your soil so that it can hold more water when it rains, and your crops can get the nutrients it needs to grow. On the irrigation, we try to champion for water harvesting measures. We also try to tell the farmers to use water efficient irrigation methods like drip irrigation, among other water conservation measures, including practicing conservation farming as opposed to the conventional ways of farming.
Thank you, Lilian. And just to sort of try and understand the name of the project, iShamba. Shamba in Swahili is a Swahili word which means farm. So if I'm not wrong, it's sort of like technical farm aspects, if that's what, if I was to directly translate it. Would I be correct?
Mm-hmm. You're close. So I stands for information, and then now Shamba is farm. So information for your farm. And it was started to back up our popular makeover TV show known as Shamba Shape Up, which whenever it aired, people had so many questions and they were looking for somewhere to call to be supported beyond the screen. And iShamba was, started to support that.
Shamba Shape Up is a television program I'm familiar with. It's a long-running television program here in Kenya that deals with matters agriculture. And one aspect that perhaps I can ask you about delivering advice on soil and irrigation to farmers, do you ever meet them, face to face and sort of have what here in Kenya we would call a baraza, which is sort of like a public meeting of sorts?
Oh, thank you for that question. So iShamba is purely a digital platform. It's like an e-extension service. So most of our operations are online or digital, but we have partners who are on the ground. So most of the time we would work with them in part of their programs. But iShamba, we are purely on the digital platform.
One thing you noted there that you ask the farmers for is what type of phone they have. Why does that matter?
That's a good question. So a lot of the information out here, farmers can access on the internet. And therefore, we'd like to know where else do farmers get information. And if we can send them clips, short clips, like the Shamba Shape Up clips, we can send them links to our website where we have write-ups of all kinds. So if you go to the iShamba website, you have so many write-ups, and if a farmer has a smartphone, we are able to send them a link. They can go download that and read it. But if a farmer just has a basic phone, we are still able to cater for their needs. We are able to send them short messages, or what we call SMS. So we try to cater for all the farmer needs, depending on the gadgets they have.
Thank you, Lilian. What challenges do you face in getting farmers to adopt this advice?
Our main audience, or our main target audience as iShamba, is a smallholder farmer. Farmers that might have less than 5 acres of land. We have been in the game for the last 10 years, so we were looking to make them better, And one of the things that we have been able to do is having advisories on intercrops. So a lot of the advisories we had initially were just on monocrops, and monocrops are planting crops, a sole crop. If it's maize, you're only doing maize. If it's bean, you're only doing bean. But with the iSpark project, we've been able to develop advisories on an intercrop, where you can now get an advice on maize and bean intercrop planted together. An advisory that will guide you on how to do it, the spacing, the kind of fertilizer and amounts to use, right from before you plant, that soil testing, land preparation, all the way to when you harvest. So that's one of the things we have been able to do. The advisories are also hyper-localized, Initially, we would just have at the county level, the highest administrative level, county, but now we have it down to the ward level. So the advisory on weather forecast is down to the ward level, and this informs the type of variety the farmer will plant, the type of fertilizer the farmer will use at planting. So I would say this has been some of the fruits we've been able to get from the iSpark project. The other thing is we've been able to think outside the box, if I must say so. So initially, we were taking farmer coordinates according to the ward level, So in a ward, there are so many farms. So we didn't mind that your farm is located in point Y within this ward. But now with iSpark project, we've piloted with a few farmers where they send us coordinates of their farm, the 4 points of their farm, so that this can be monitored by satellite and we can see the progress of how their farm is doing, looking at the vegetative index, and be able to advise them based on that. So it's been a very good angle we've taken, and we hope to build on it even with the coming projects.
One aspect you noted there is soil testing. Now, here in Kenya in the past, we used to have agricultural extension officers who would come to your farm and assist you with issues like that, soil testing, and then, some periods they would do it for free. But now, there are not many places, I would say, that are close to farmers that provide that particular sort of service. And if so, farmers have to pay sometimes an arm and a leg, if I could say, being a farmer myself. If that is a crucial aspect of what a farmer does, and it is something that you monitor, just how does that work? Is it a major challenge?
It is a challenge, I would say. It is a challenge for farmers to access these services, and especially looking at the extension services in Kenya has really gone down. There's very few extension farmers serving. Things like irrigation are really capital intensive. So if there is a way a farmer can be linked to credit or financial support, that will really make a big difference. Providing farmers with insurance, for example, is very important to de-risk them from the effects of climate change. And lastly is market linkages. A farmer has done all the work, they have harvested, and now they are stuck with their produce. They need somewhere to sell to make, to make money and be able to support other areas of their lives. So bundling this would really make a big difference. The other thing would be making information accessible and simple. Make it simple and accessible. So at iShamba, we have mastered the art of simplifying these informations. We take the complex scientific information and make it simple, easy to understand, and send it to the farmer. The other one would be working very closely with community champions, or the people we call the influence. The people look up to them in the village, or down in the villages. So working very closely with them to make sure that they implement some of the practices we are championing for, so that other farmers can learn from them, and this promotes peer-to-peer learning.
The localized advisories and satellite monitor farms that Lilian describes rely on the body of evidence that ISPAC team is building from ground up. That work starts with a question that sounds simple, but rarely has a clear answer. Which agricultural innovations actually work, and for which farmers, and under what conditions? Eduardo Garcia, a data scientist at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture in Nairobi, is part of the ISPAC team answering that question.
So the Spark project is a collaborative initiative that is focusing on Western Kenya, and the objective is to help smallholder farmers become more resilient to climate change while improving the sustainability of agriculture. This is in many parts of Kenya, particularly in Western Kenya. It's affected by climate variability and environmental degradation. And at the same time, farmers need more practical solutions that help to improve the productivity and also guards them against the environmental degradation. The challenge is that these are, in many cases, agricultural innovations like practices or new technologies or advisory services often are unclear on which ones work, under what conditions, and for whom. So the iSpark project tries to bring all these together using data, modeling, and collaborative and participatory frameworks with farmers and other organizations to identify which are the most important and relevant innovations. So to start with soil health, I would say that soils are the foundation of a productive and resilient agriculture. Like a colleague used to say, soils are what those 15 centimeters of soil are what separates us from mass starvation. So soils that contain enough organic matter specifically are better prepared and have a better structure, which provides crops with essential functions like water retention, for example, or support plant growth and plant nutrition, and in general just help productivity under stressful conditions. Whereas more degraded soils are more susceptible to erosion, and they provide less functions in general. So this under climate change becomes particularly important. Healthy soils act like a sponge, sort of. So they absorb water during the rainfall periods, and then this water is made available to support crops throughout the season, and protects crops from stress, and also provides nutrients.
Through ISPAC, researchers have narrowed in on 3 focal innovations for Western Kenya: intercropping, irrigation, and soil health. But identifying practices is only the first step. To know whether those innovations will hold up as climate changes, ISPAC is also using satellite data and climate modeling to project how they will perform over the coming decades. Andy Challinor is a professor of climate impact at the University of Leeds and the UK science lead for ISPAC.
We've not done so much on climate modeling, and that's because we've been looking at the power of remote sensing to tell us essentially what the impact of the weather and the climate in that particular year has been. So we can use remote sensing to look at farmers' fields and agriculture across a region, and we can look also. We've looked at historical weather to try and understand what is happening when. So what we've done there is to find kind of small but detectable differences in the resilience of, for example, intercrop versus monocrop. We also look at irrigation and other things. But we've detected these small but significant, statistically significant and detectable differences between cropping systems. And this is without using much climate data. But this year we move on to focusing much more on climate data and looking at what future projections of climate for Kenya look like and what's expected for each of our three innovation areas, looking at intercropping, looking at irrigation, and looking at soil health. What will these look like over the coming decades, given how we expect climate to change during that time? So with intercrop, it's looking at what's that signal of the resilience of intercrop going into the future. What does it look like now? And what will it look like in the future under different scenarios? So this is where understanding what future scenarios of climate, but also future scenarios of policy and of agricultural practice, understanding what these different futures would look like is really key to understanding the potential value of these innovation areas into the future. What's the value of investing in these different approaches to farming? How will that pay off over the coming decades?
Professor, just to add, when it comes to speaking to policymakers who are sometimes, members of parliament, how do you get the message across to them? I mean, from your angle coming in from my scientific perspective and from their angle coming in from, albeit some of political perspective, how do you come to a meeting point where you are able to provide them with the information they require and that you need them to know?
It's a really good question. And I think the key thing, first of all, is to listen. So we had a meeting, for example, with the Kenyan Ministry of Ag and others, again, I think around about a month ago. And it really became clear to me the importance of that listening to what the existing policies are, which of course we knew something about from reading, but also some of the nuances of the way in which scientific information will be received and the way in which it may be talked about in policy circles. And these nuances are really important in avoiding misunderstandings. So that listening is really important in order to avoid misunderstandings about, is the science trying to say that one thing is definitely better than another, or is it trying to say that a particular policy is good or bad? And science really is objective in that sense. It kind of exists in order to provide impartial evidence based on what we know about reality, including the policies. So it's really important to listen to where that policy making world, where those policymakers are coming from, to understand the kinds of conversations that they have, in order to then for us to be able to understand how to share the scientific information that we have in a way that really improves the clarity and shows and demonstrates the value that information can have. And that, of course, is a conversation. So it's that listening and then just really having the time to have a conversation over the time of a workshop and over more prolonged periods through engagement, following up on policy briefs, etc. So it really is a dialogue, and that listening and dialogue element is absolutely central to that kind of work.
Professor, as a scientist, would you say you, in a way, are the go-between between the policymakers and the investors?
To some extent, I think we probably see ourselves. I certainly see myself as operating across a range of territories that are centred in research and include certainly investors and policymakers, and of course just the generation of knowledge and the publication of papers. So we're not necessarily a kind of a go-between, or if we are, we're certainly not the only go-between. But by working with these different groups of people and co-developing, I certainly think we can bring the value of science to different arenas, including investment and including policy making.
In practical terms, how does the UK CGIAR collaboration strengthen this work?
Yeah, well, it's invaluable, really. I mean, the funding from the UK CGIAR Centre and the links through to the centres, the IITA and the Alliance, of course, based in Kenya, in Nairobi, means that we have that presence and that connection with what's going on in the ground, along, of course, with our partners, iShamba. We have that connection with what's going on the ground, and we're able to have discussions that are really informed by that context. And in the visits we've had to Nairobi and to the farms surrounding the area, for us to help us understand a little bit more what the situation is on the ground, and in the conversations with farmers, that we've really been able to understand so much more about the context that means that we're not just producing analyses, dry analyses and maps of indices that then get published in scientific journals. We're really able to make that as relevant as possible. And I think without those links, that developing that relevance just wouldn't be possible in the same way.
Evidence from farmers' fields and from satellites only shifts the dial if it reaches the people making policy and investment decisions. And that is another strand of ISPAC's work, translating the project's finding into policy pathways and investment plans for climate-smart agriculture in Kenya. But what kind of evidence actually convinces policymakers to act? We put that question to Victor Kargat, a lecturer in biological sciences at Masai Mara University.
Policymakers will mostly respond strongly to evidence that whatever policy they are trying to put in place is economic, scalable, and risk-reducing. So when it comes to soil, as I've told you, it is indirect and very long-term. So it does not meet, or it does not fit in this profile of being economic, scalable, and risk-reducing at the moment. Of course, in the long term, with very good policies, then we'll have better soils and therefore better farming. But because we are saying in the long term, so it means that it is not something that needs immediate attention. And for that reason, then it is overlooked. Scientifically supported data is needed. Day-to-day operations data is also needed. And when those two are matched together, then we can have policies that are practical, adaptable, and that will solve a particular problem that you have in that particular area.
Victor's point that good policy needs both rigorous science and day-to-day operational data reflects the approach ISPAC has taken from the start. This includes co-producing evidence with farmers, advisory research, and national research partnership, rather than handing it down from the lab. And we round off with Lilian Kirwa, reflecting on what the ISPAC partnership has meant for iShamba's work with farmers.
Yeah, I'd like to acknowledge Professor Andy Chalina from the Leeds University for involving us in the ISPAC project. It's really been a game changer for us in terms of the advisories we are sending to the farmer, making sure that they are evidence-based, they are scientifically backed, and together with the team from SEAT and the team from Leeds, iShamba is really grateful for being part of this project, and we hope that this will have an actual impact on the farmer and they'll stay resilient, because the objective of the project is intercropping for resilience. And that's our aim too, to make sure that the farmer is resilient, is able to increase their yields, improve the nutrition for their families, and in turn improve their livelihoods.
That's all from us at Africa Science Focus today. If you want to find out more, head to the SciDevNet website, and that's www.scidev.net. Today's show was produced by Alice Hurst with editing by Orechie Kianyao and Titilape Fadere, and reporting by Michael Kaloki. My name is Orechie Kianyao. Until next time, goodbye.